Hello my dear friends and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Joy C. Joy and today in this lecture we will analyze the CVC analysis on banking frauds. The Central Vigilance Commission has recently made an analysis of the banking frauds that happened in the country. So we all know recently there were many banking frauds that were brought into the picture and CVC had made an analysis on these issues. We will analyze the entire issue, the findings of CVC, the highlights of the report, the significance of the report and also the recommendations as provided in the report in this lecture. Let us start. First of all, let us see what is the current affair. CVC is the Central Vigilance Commission and CVC has recently released an analysis of the top 100 banking frauds. So there were many banking fraud episodes going on in the country in the recent months and the top 100 banking frauds were analyzed by the Central Vigilance Commission. And this is more important because this is the first of its kind analysis done by the Central Vigilance Commission. Now let us analyze what is the report. The banking frauds were classified and analyzed for 13 sectors. So in order to get sector-specific analysis, the CVC has classified the banking frauds into 13 sectors, which includes gems and jewellery, manufacturing sector, media, aviation sector, service sector, etc. First of all, the report was classified into various sectors and separate analysis was done for each sector. And regarding the scope of the report, a wide area under the banking sector was covered under the report, which includes discounting of checks, trading, fixed deposits, information technology, export business, demand loan, letter of comfort, etc. So all these areas were covered. That means the scope of the report is very wide. Thirdly, the focus of the report. So this analysis done by the CVC focused on the modus operandi of the fraud, the amount involved in this fraud, the type of lending, whether it is a consortium lending or whether it was to an individual, the anomalies observed in the fraud and also the loopholes observed and the systemic improvements that are required to plug the gaps in the system and the procedures. So all this were given focus under the report. That means the focus was also very wide. The CVC covered almost every area from the modus operandi to the systemic improvements that are required. Now, next is the report sharing. The CVC has shared this analysis report with the RBI, Reserve Bank of India, which is the monetary authority in the country, with the ED, that is Enforcement Directorate, with the CBI, Central Bureau of Investigation. So, mainly with these three bodies, the CVC has shared the analysis of the report. Now these stakeholders will have to act upon the report or the analysis made. So the RBI can take further steps based on the report. ED also can take steps. CBI can also take further steps based on the report. But when the report was shared by the CVC, the names of the borrower accounts and also the names of the bank were not disclosed. Only the analysis of the fraud was disclosed. Now, the report also suggests various steps that has to be taken by the agencies for investigation in order to fix the staff accountability and also the recovery measures. All these are highlighted in the report. So this is in brief about the report. What does the report cover and what is the scope of the report? Now we will come to the significance of the report. First of all, the Reserve Bank of India RBI had published the Financial Stability Report and in the latest Financial Stability Report published by the RBI, it highlighted the bank fraud scenario in India. So, according to the RBI's Financial Stability Report, the Indian banking system reported over 6,500 instances of fraud which involves around 30,000 crore rupees in the last financial year or in the last fiscal year. So, the amount involved and the number of instances were very high according to the RBI's Financial Stability Report. So, in this context, the CVC's analysis of banking frauds is very important and significant. Now, second one is preventive vigilance measure. we have already seen that in the CVC analysis, the CVC has come up with certain steps that will help in minimizing the banking fraud instances. So, these steps provided in the report will act as a preventive vigilance mechanism or measure to minimize the occurrence of such type of frauds in the future. Now, thirdly, this will also improve the general understanding of the banking frauds. Now, the CVC has come up with a report that is open to the general public. So, this has also shared the report with the RBI, with the CBI and also ED. Now what has happened? This will improve the general understanding of the banking frauds. Different stakeholders will have more understanding of banking frauds, and this will make them aware about the existing lapses or shortcomings in the system. So once the shortcomings are understood and realized, measures can be taken in order to improve this shortcomings. Now let us understand what are the key findings of the report. The first one regarding companies doing jewellery business. What the companies who are involved in the jewellery business do, or what they did is that in order to avail higher amount of loans, what they will do, the companies in the jewellery business inflated the value of imported diamonds. That means the diamonds which they imported, they had shown the price increased. So inflated the price of the jewellery. And they took credit on the pretext that the export bills were unpaid. So for imports they inflated the amount, and regarding the export, that is after the jewellery is made they will export it. So what did they do with the export bill? They showed it to the banks that the export bills are unpaid, and this is because of the financial difficulties that are faced by the overseas buyers. So they exposed unpaid export bills and also exposed inflated import bills. And this export and import bills were used by these companies in order to avail loans from the banks. Now, the second finding was many companies had availed multiple loans. So, companies found out ways in order to take credit from more than one bank. For example, before shipping of products to overseas, that is before exporting, they will avail loan from one bank, and after exporting from another bank. Likewise, they found out ways to take loans from multiple institutions, multiple banks by the same company. And third finding was regarding the manipulation of the papers. The companies were found to manipulate the paperwork to dupe the lenders. So in order to avail loan from multiple lenders by a single company, many companies manipulated the papers. This will involve manipulation of balance sheet, profit and loss account, etc. in order to show higher levels of profit and avail more loans or more amount of credit from the banks. Now, for example, under the CVC analysis, a case was found where a manufacturing company showed an audited balance sheet with net profit of 23 crore in some particular year. But what happened after showing this net profit of 23 crore, they got some credit facilities from a consortium of banks. But later, this balance sheet was revised, and after revising the balance sheet, the new net profit was only 0.34 crore. From 23 crore, it reduced to 0.34 crore, and this revised balance sheet was not informed to the lender, that is to the consortium of banks. So what will happen? In the first case, the net profit was manipulated. It was manipulated as 23 crore. But later in the revised balance sheet, it is only 0.34 crore. But in the first case, banks will give more credit because the profit is more. So such type of manipulation were also noticed by the CVC. And this type of manipulations were very frequent among many companies, and such type of manipulations were done in order to cheat the banks to avail more credit from the banks. Now, fourth finding was regarding the fixed deposit fraud. So under the fixed deposit fraud, the fraudster presented himself as a bank representative to the companies and also government organizations. So for the companies and to the government, he was a representative of the bank. And to the bank, what will the fraudster do? To the bank, he will present himself as a financial advisor to the organizations. So he played multiple roles with the company, with the government and with the bank, and he will mobilize large bulk deposits. And to the depositors, that is to those who made this deposit, this frauds will give fake term deposit receipts. And later, loan accounts were opened in the name of depositors by giving fictitious documents and original TDR, that is term deposit receipts, and the fraud will take the money away. Another important finding of this analysis was that the frauds were industry specific. That means the modus operandi and the scope of this fraudulent activities were specific to industries. So for different industries or different sectors, the modus operandi or scope was different. The type of fraud involved was different, and therefore the CVC has come up with specific suggestions for specific industries for their systemic improvement and also for improving their operations. Now let us see what were the suggestions given by the CVC. The first one was to strengthen the standard operating procedures or the SOP of the banks and the monitoring system of such loans given by the banks. The standard operating procedures refers to the regular operations done by the banks. That means the regular way of conducting the business by the banks. So CVC has suggested ways to strengthen the standard operations as well as the monitoring system in the banks. The second one was related to segment related limits. The CVC suggested for segment related limits on credit exposures, especially in the context of fixed deposit frauds. In case of fixed deposit frauds, we have seen that there was a poor level of checks and balances in the banking system. If there were proper mechanisms for checks and balances, the episodes of fixed deposit frauds could have been minimized. Now, third suggestion was to improve due diligence capabilities. This can lead to better credit appraisal and also to contain the quantum of NPA, that is non-performing assets. So, while disbursing the loans, the diligence capacities should be improved so that the NPA episodes and also the fraud episodes can be controlled or minimized. The fourth suggestion was to set up fraud monitoring agencies in the banks. So, in order to prepare themselves to avoid fraud episodes, the banks must set up a monitoring agency within the banking system. It also suggested that banks should leverage technology to detect frauds and also to improve the sharing of information. If the information is shared within the banking system, such duplication or multiplication of fraudulent activities by a same entity can be avoided. So, technology must be adopted in order to share the banking information. Another important suggestion was to ensure the accountability of the third-party service providers. So here the third-party service providers includes auditors, lawyers, etc. So we have seen in many episodes there was manipulation of papers by the companies. That means the balance sheet, profit and loss account, etc. were manipulated, and this manipulation is mainly done by the auditors. So accountability of the third-party service providers will help in minimizing such fraudulent episodes to a greater extent. So there should be a proper system in the country where the auditors and other professional examiners do not fake the documents and avail credit facilities from the banks. As a part of this suggestion, the CVC also noted that the banks must immediately delist such third valuers, that is the chartered accountants, auditors or chartered engineers, advocates, etc., who have questionable credentials or who neglect their professional duties, or those who have caused any financial loss to the banks, or those who are involved in any fraudulent activities like omission, commission or dishonesty. Such third-party service providers must be delisted. Now, the CVC also suggested that better operation and governance standards must be adopted by Indian banks. So, Indian banks need an improvement in operation as well as governance standards. So, this will improve the banking environment in the country. And for that, both the government as well as the Reserve Bank of India must work together to improve the overall banking structure in the country. You can find the PDF of this lecture on my Facebook page, and for any queries related to your UPSC preparations, you can get in touch with me on my Facebook page. Thank you, and I wish you all a very good day.